Park had been teaching alien children for 3 years now. She worked on Galactic Unity Station Harmony, a massive space station that floated between star systems. Her job was simple but important. She taught young aliens about Earth and human culture. Most days, the lessons were boring for everyone. She would show pictures of cities and mountains. The children would nod politely and forget everything by dinner time. But today was different. Today she had a new student. The cub sat at the front of the small classroom. His name was, and he was 6 years old by human counting. Had never seen a child up close before. He looked like a small fox, but not quite. His fur was silver blue and seemed to shimmer when light touched it. His eyes were large and golden, like two small suns. His ears were tall and pointed, and they moved constantly, turning toward every sound in the room. Was the son of Ambassador, an important diplomat from the had joined the Galactic Coalition only 2 years ago. They were still learning about other species, and other species were still learning about them. Today, said, turning on the holographic display, we will learn about Earth seasons. The other children in the class, a mix of young and one shy, settled into their seats. They had heard about Earth before. Blue planet, lots of water. Humans came from there, nothing special. But leaned forward. His golden eyes were fixed on the display. Began with spring. She showed images of flowers blooming, trees growing green leaves, and baby animals being born. Spring is when everything wakes up, she explained. The cold ends and life begins again. His ears twitched. Cold, what is cold? Paused. She sometimes forgot that not all planets had temperature changes. Cold is when the air becomes less warm. It can make you shiver. Your body does not like it, but your mind can learn to enjoy it. Nodded slowly, storing this information away. She moved to summer. Beaches, sunshine, people swimming in blue oceans. Summer is the warmest time. Humans like to play outside and eat cold food. Cold food, asked, you eat temperature. Laughed softly. No, the food itself is cold, like frozen fruit or ice cream. It helps us feel cool when the air is hot. The other children were already losing interest. The young was drawing on his tablet. The twins were whispering to each other, but remained focused, his golden eyes never leaving the display. Autumn came next. Leaves changing colors, falling from trees, covering the ground in red and orange and gold. Autumn is when the world prepares for rest, said. Everything slows down. The air becomes cooler. Animals gather food for the hard times ahead. Hard times, repeated. Winter, said. She pressed a button and the display changed. The image showed a mountain covered in white. Snow fell from a gray sky, soft and silent. Trees stood bare, their branches heavy with ice. A frozen lake reflected the pale winter sun. In the corner of the image, human children were building something, a figure made of snow, with rocks for eyes and sticks for arms. Went completely still. His fur, which had been shimmering gently throughout the lesson, suddenly blazed with color. Blues and purples and silvers raced across his body like waves on water. His ears stood straight up. His golden eyes grew even wider. What, he whispered, is that? Looked at the display, then back at the cub. She had never seen her react this way. That is snow, she said carefully. It is frozen water that falls from the sky. Frozen water falls from the sky, repeated. His voice was strange, almost dreamlike. The sky gives you frozen water. Yes, when the air is cold enough, water in the clouds becomes ice, but not hard ice, soft ice, light ice. It falls slowly like, searched for the right words, like feathers, like whispers. Stood up from his seat. The other children looked at him with confusion. The young stopped drawing. Even the twins went quiet. Show me more, demanded. It was not a request. It was an order delivered with the absolute authority of a child who has discovered something magnificent. Showed him more. She showed him snowball fights, children throwing balls of packed snow at each other, laughing as they ran through white fields. She explained that the snow was cold and wet, that it melted when you held it, that it could sting your face if thrown hard enough. But humans loved it anyway. She showed him sledding, children sitting on flat boards, sliding down hills of snow at great speed, screaming with joy. She showed him snowmen, those strange figures made of 3 balls of snow, decorated with whatever items humans could find. Carrots for noses, coal for eyes, scarves wrapped around necks that were not real. She showed him frozen lakes where humans strapped blades to their feet and glided across the ice like dancers. She showed him homes with fires burning inside, humans wrapped in soft blankets, drinking hot chocolate while snow fell outside their windows. "The snow makes everything quiet," said softly. "When it falls, the world becomes peaceful. All the noise goes away. You can hear your own heartbeat." His fur was still blazing with color. His small hands were pressed flat against the holographic display, as if he could reach through it and touch the snow. "On my world," he said quietly, "nothing changes. Every day is the same temperature. Every season is the same season. The sky never gives us anything except light and sometimes rain." He turned to look at. His golden eyes were filled with something she had never seen in an alien child before. Wonder, pure, absolute wonder. Human said, "I want to experience this snow thing." Smiled gently. "Perhaps one day when you are older you can visit Earth. Many planets have snow. You could." No, shook his head firmly. "Not one day, not when I am older. I want to experience snow now, immediately." "We are on a space station. There is no snow here. Snow needs cold air and clouds and—" "Then make it." "Blinked what?" "Make snow," said it as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "You are human. Human, you taught me last week that humans went from living in caves to flying between stars in only 10,000 years. You said humans never accept impossible things. You said humans always find a way." Opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. The cub had used her own lesson against her. "You said humans are special because they do not give up," continued. His voice was rising with passion. "You said humans build things that should not exist. You said humans dream bigger than their bodies." He pointed at the holographic snow still falling on the display. "I am asking you to dream, human. Dream me some snow." The classroom was completely silent. Even the other children were staring at now, caught up in the strange energy radiating from the small cub. Looked at this alien child, this small fox-like creature with fur like starlight and eyes like golden suns. He was asking for the impossible. He was asking her to bring winter to a space station floating in the void between worlds. And somewhere deep inside her, in the part of her heart that was purely and stubbornly human, a small voice whispered, "Why not?" "I cannot promise anything," said slowly, "but I will try." His fur exploded with light. Every color of the rainbow danced across his small body. He threw himself at and wrapped his arms around her waist in a hug that nearly knocked her over. "Thank you, human," he whispered into her shirt. "Thank you for trying." And in that moment, Park knew that her quiet life on Harmony Station was about to become very complicated. Ambassador stood in the doorway of her quarters, staring down at her child with a mixture of confusion and concern. Had been talking without pause for nearly 10 minutes. His fur was still shimmering with excitement, and his golden eyes had not blinked once during his entire speech. "Snow," repeated slowly. "You want snow." "Yes, mother," human showed me. "It falls from the sky like soft ice. It covers everything in white. Human children play in it and throw it at each other and build figures out of it. I want to experience it. I need to experience it." Was a diplomat. She had negotiated treaties with species that ate their enemies. She had maintained calm during wars that lasted centuries. But nothing in her long career had prepared her for a 6-year-old who had discovered Earth weather. "We are on a space station. There is no weather here. No seasons, no snow." Human said she would try to make some. ears flattened against her head. She said what? She said humans do not accept impossible things. She said humans always find a way. She is going to find a way to make snow for me. That is not. Mother's voice became very serious. He reached up and took his hand in both of his small ones. On our world, every day is the same. The temperature never changes. The sky is always the same color. Nothing is ever different, but humans have seasons. They have change. They have waiting. Waiting asked. Yes, humans said that human children wait for snow. They count the days. They look at the sky and hope. And then when the snow finally comes, they are so happy because they waited for it. His golden eyes were wet now. I have never waited for anything, Mother. I want to know what that feels like. I want to hope for something and then receive it. Was silent for a long moment. She looked at her child, this small creature she had brought into the universe, and saw something new in him, something hungry, something human. I will speak to the station commander, she said finally. His fur blazed with light. Commander Lee was a patient man. He had commanded Harmony Station for 12 years. He had dealt with diplomatic incidents, mechanical failures, and one memorable occasion when a delegation accidentally set fire to the botanical gardens. Nothing surprised him anymore. But when Ambassador walked into his office and explained that her son wanted him to create snow on a space station, he had to ask her to repeat herself 3 times. Snow, he said, leaning back in his chair. The cub wants snow. He is quite determined, replied. I have never seen him this focused on anything. He has not eaten properly in 2 days. He keeps watching recordings of Earth winters. He asked me this morning if he could feel cold. Feel cold. He has never experienced temperatures below 22 degrees. Our species regulates our environment carefully. Temperature variation is unsettling to most, paused, but seems to crave it. Commander Lee rubbed his forehead. He was 53 years old. He had 2 grown children back on Earth, both of whom had loved snow when they were young. He remembered building snowmen with them, watching their faces light up when the first flakes fell each winter. It is an unusual request, he admitted. It is an impossible request, corrected. I told him as much, but he reminded me that humans specialize in impossible things. A small smile crossed Lee's face. He learned that from Lieutenant Park, I assume. She has been teaching him about Earth. I believe she has done her job too well. Lee stood and walked to his window. Outside, stars drifted slowly past. The void was dark and cold and endless. No snow out there, no seasons, just the quiet emptiness of space. But somewhere behind him, on this station full of life and light and different species learning to live together, a small alien child was dreaming of winter. Let me make some calls, Lee said. Chief Engineer arrived at the commander's office 20 minutes later. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and hands that were always covered in grease or engine oil. She had kept Harmony Station running for 8 years, fixing problems that other engineers said were unfixable. You want me to make snow, she said flatly. I want you to tell me if it is possible, Lee replied. Sat down and pulled out her tablet. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, pulling up diagrams and calculations. The station has atmospheric processors in every section. We can control temperature, humidity, air pressure. In theory, we could lower the temperature in a contained space to below freezing. And the snow itself. Water is not a problem. We have plenty of purified water in storage. The challenge is creating actual snowfall. Frowned at her tablet. Snow forms when water vapor in clouds freezes into ice crystals. We would need to create artificial clouds, control the humidity precisely, and manage the air currents so the snow falls slowly instead of just turning into ice on the ceiling. Can it be done? Was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at Lee with something that might have been a smile. Cargo Bay 7 has been decommissioned for months. We use it for storage, but most of it is empty. If we clear it out, install temporary atmospheric controls and rig up a system for producing ice crystals." She shrugged. "It will not be perfect. It will not be exactly like Earth snow, but it could be close." "How long?" "2 weeks, if I have full support from the engineering team." Lee nodded slowly. "And the resources?" "Significant but not unreasonable. We would need to divert some power from non-essential systems. The water usage would be noticeable, and I would need to pull at least 6 engineers off their regular duties." Set down her tablet. "Commander, may I ask why we are doing this? It is a lot of effort for one child's request." Before Lee could answer, there was a soft sound from the doorway. They both turned. Stood there, his small form barely reaching the doorknob. His golden eyes were fixed on. His fur was shimmering nervously. "Because I asked," said quietly. "Because I have never wanted anything this much. Because humans said that wanting something and waiting for something and finally getting something is what makes humans happy." He stepped into the room. "I want to understand human happiness. I want to feel what you feel when the sky gives you frozen water." Stared at the cub. She thought of her own childhood in dew in the mountains of Korea, where snow fell thick and heavy every winter. She thought of her grandmother making hot soup while she played in the white fields behind their house. She thought of the silence, the peace, the magic of those winter days. "You want to experience winter," she said softly. Nodded. "Please, I know it is difficult, I know it is impossible, but you are human. Humans said humans make impossible things possible every day." Looked at Commander Lee. Something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. This was not just about one child. This was about something larger, something important. "I will need volunteers," said finally. "This cannot be just an engineering project. If we are going to create winter, we need people who remember what winter means." Word spread through the station within hours. By the next morning, 37 humans had volunteered to help. Engineers and botanists and cooks and maintenance workers. People who had grown up with snow and people who had only seen it once in their lives. People who missed Earth and people who had never been there but had heard stories from their parents. They gathered in Cargo Bay 7, looking at the empty space that would become winter. Stood among them, smaller than everyone else, his golden eyes reflecting the harsh lights overhead. "We are going to build you winter," little one said, kneeling down to his level. "But you must be patient. Winter does not come quickly. You must wait for it." Nodded solemnly. "Human gave me a calendar. She showed me how human children count the days until snow comes. I will count the days too." "Good," ruffled the fur on his head. "Waiting is part of the magic. When the snow finally falls, you will understand why." That night marked the first X on his calendar. 13 more days until winter. He had never been so excited in his entire life. The first thing they did was empty Cargo Bay 7 completely. It took 2 full days. Boxes of spare parts, old equipment, and forgotten supplies were moved to other storage areas. The human workers sang while they worked, old songs about winter and snow and coming home for the holidays. Sat on a crate near the entrance, watching everything with wide golden eyes. "What are those words they are singing?" he asked, who had come to check on the progress. "They are singing about a white Christmas," explained. "It is a human holiday that happens during winter. Families gather together, give each other gifts, and hope for snow." "They hope for snow." "Yes, in many places, snow does not come every year. So people hope and wish and dream of white snow on Christmas morning." Sfur shimmered thoughtfully. "Humans spend a lot of time hopping for things." "We do," agreed. "It is one of our favorite activities." On day 3, Han arrived with plans for trees. She was the station's botanist, responsible for the gardens that provided fresh food and clean air. She was a quiet woman who preferred plants to people, but when she heard about the winter project, she had immediately volunteered. "Real pine trees will not survive the cold," she explained to Commander Lee, spreading her designs across a table. But I can create artificial ones from recycled materials, plastic frames covered in synthetic needles. They will look real enough, especially in low light. How many can you make? 20 if I have help, 30 if I work through the nights. You will have help, Lee promised. The trees became a project of their own. Other crew members joined in her botanical lab, cutting and shaping and assembling. They argued about the perfect shape of pine branches. They debated the exact shade of green. One engineer insisted that the trees needed to smell like pine, so he spent 3 days creating a scent generator that would release the aroma of a forest. Visited the botanical lab every day. He watched hands shape branches with careful precision. He asked questions about trees, about forests, about why humans loved nature so much even though they had left their planet behind. We did not leave because we stopped loving it, told him gently. We left because we loved it so much that we wanted to see if the rest of the universe was just as beautiful. Is it? Looked at the small cub with his shimmering fur and golden eyes. I am beginning to think so. On day 5, unveiled his ice crystal system. He was a maintenance worker, responsible for fixing broken pipes and clogged filters. But he had grown up in a small town in the mountains, where winters were long and cold and wonderful. He missed snow more than he missed almost anything else. The key is the distribution, he explained, showing the team a network of small tubes mounted on the cargo bay ceiling. We pump purified water through these tubes. At the end of each tube is a nozzle that breaks the water into tiny droplets. The droplets pass through a freezing chamber and come out as ice crystals. Like artificial snow machines on Earth, observed. Exactly, but better, grinned proudly. I added microfans to create gentle air currents. The snow will not just fall straight down. It will drift and swirl like real snow in real wind. They tested the system on day 6. The first attempt was a disaster. The nozzles clogged, the freezing chamber overheated, and instead of snow, they got a fine mist that covered everyone in cold water. Spent the next 2 days rebuilding the entire system. On day 8 they tried again. This time, a single snowflake drifted down from the ceiling of the cargo bay. It was small and imperfect, melting before it touched the ground, but it was snow. Who had been watching from the doorway let out a sound that no one had ever heard him make before. It was something between a laugh and a cry and a song. His fur blazed with colors so bright that several humans had to shield their eyes. Snow, he whispered, that was snow. Just a test, said quickly. The real thing will be much better, I promise. But was not listening. He was staring at the spot where the snowflake had fallen, as if he could still see it there. News of the project spread beyond the human crew. Other species began asking questions. The delegation sent a formal inquiry about the resource allocation for atmospheric modification. The ambassador requested a full report on the engineering specifications. Even the usually silent representative asked if she could observe the construction process. But not all the reactions were positive. On day 9, an official named confronted Commander Lee in the station's central corridor. This is foolishness, declared. His scales were dark with disapproval. You are spending valuable resources to create frozen water for a child. The energy alone could power essential station systems for weeks. The energy is coming from non-essential systems, Lee replied calmly. No critical functions have been affected. That is not the point. The point is efficiency. The point is logic. What purpose does this serve? What benefit does the coalition receive from snow in a cargo bay? Lee considered the question carefully. He thought about counting the days on his calendar. He thought about his crew singing winter songs while they worked. He thought about the look in his eyes when she talked about forests and the pride in his voice when that first snowflake fell. The benefit, Lee said slowly, is that 37 alien children will experience winter for the first time. They will learn that the universe contains wonders they never imagined. They will see humans not as strange creatures from a distant planet, but as people who create magic from nothing. He paused. And perhaps they will remember this day for the rest of their lives. Perhaps it will change how they see the galaxy. Perhaps it will change everything. Stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without another word. On day 10, set up her station in the cargo bay. She was the head chef of Harmony Station, responsible for feeding 3,000 beings from dozens of different species. But today, she had a special project. Hot chocolate, she announced, showing a steaming cup of brown liquid. This is what humans drink when they come inside from the cold. Sniff the cup cautiously. It smells sweet. It is sweet and warm, and it makes you feel happy inside, especially after your fingers and toes have gotten cold from playing in the snow. But I have not played in the snow yet. I know, consider this practice. Smiled and handed him the cup. Careful, it is hot. Took a small sip. His golden eyes went very wide. His fur shimmered through several colors before settling on a warm, contented orange. This is wonderful, he breathed. Wait until you drink it after being out in the cold, said. It tastes 10 times better then. That night marked day 10 on his calendar. Only 4 more days. Only 4 more days until winter. He lay in his bed, unable to sleep, imagining what snow would feel like on his fur. Would it be soft like the blankets humans used? Would it be cold like the ice put in drinks? Would it be silent like human described, so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat? Outside his window, the stars drifted past in the endless darkness of space. No snow out there, no seasons, just the cold void. But inside Harmony Station, inside Cargo Bay 7, humans were building winter. They were building it for him, a small cub who had asked for the impossible. And they were succeeding. Closed his eyes and dreamed of white. The morning of day 14 arrived slowly. Had not slept at all. He had spent the entire night sitting by his window, watching the stars and waiting for the station's artificial sun to rise. His calendar hung on the wall beside him, every box marked with a careful X except for the last one. Today was the day. His mother, Ambassador, found him still sitting by the window when she woke. His fur was dim with exhaustion, but his golden eyes burned brighter than she had ever seen them. You should have slept, she said gently. I could not, replied. I tried, but every time I closed my eyes I saw snow falling. I saw white covering everything. I saw human and all the others who worked so hard. He turned to look at his mother. They built winter for me, mother. How could I sleep? Had no answer for that. The invitation had gone out to every child on the station. 37 young beings from 12 different species. Cubs with shimmering fur. Hatchlings with scales of green and gold. Twins who finished each other's sentences. Younglings who communicated through color changes. And many others, each one curious about this thing called snow that had caused so much excitement. They gathered outside Cargo Bay 7 at precisely noon. The large doors were closed, hiding whatever waited inside. Commander Lee stood before the crowd, his hands clasped behind his back, a small smile on his face. Today, he announced, you will experience something that most beings in the galaxy never see. You will experience winter. The children whispered among themselves. The alien parents who had accompanied them exchanged uncertain glances. Only remained perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the cargo bay doors. Winter is a season, Lee continued. It is a time when the world becomes cold and quiet and white. For humans, winter is special. It reminds us that change is beautiful. It teaches us that even the coldest times can bring joy. He stepped aside and nodded to, who stood at a control panel near the doors. Lee said, would you like to open the doors? Walked forward on trembling legs. His fur was shimmering so brightly that several children nearby had to squint. He reached the control panel and looked up at. "Press this button," she said softly, pointing. Pressed it. The cargo bay doors slid open slowly. Cold air rushed out, colder than anything had ever felt. It wrapped around him like an invisible blanket, making his fur stand on end. He gasped, not from discomfort but from wonder. And then he saw it. The cargo bay had been transformed. Gone were the metal walls and harsh lights. In their place was a winter wonderland. Artificial pine trees lined the edges, their green needles dusted with white. The floor was covered in thick snow that sparkled under soft blue lighting, and above, from the network of tubes that had built, snow was falling. Real snow, soft and white and silent, drifting down from above like feathers from heaven. Stood frozen in the doorway, his breath fogged in the cold air, something he had never seen before. He watched the white mist rise from his mouth and disappear into the air. Behind him, the other children were pushing forward, eager to see, but he could not move. A snowflake landed on his nose. It was cold, colder than anything he had imagined, but also soft, so impossibly soft. It sat on his nose for just a moment, a perfect crystal of frozen water, before it melted and became a tiny drop that rolled down his fur. His fur exploded with color. Every shade of the rainbow rippled across his body like waves on an ocean. His golden eyes filled with tears that he did not understand. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Knelt beside him. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. "Human," whispered. "Is this what your world gives you every year?" "In some places, yes." Turned to look at her. His face was wet with melted snow and tears. "Your planet loves you very much." Felt her own eyes grow wet. "It does," she agreed, "and now we share that love with you." Took his first step into the snow. It crunched beneath his feet, another new sensation. The cold rose up through his legs and into his body, making him shiver, but he did not mind. He took another step and another until he stood in the center of the cargo bay with snow falling all around him. He tilted his head back and opened his mouth, catching snowflakes on his tongue. Behind him, the other children rushed in. Their reactions were just as powerful. The hatchlings hissed with surprise at the cold, then began rolling in the snow with delight. The twins stood perfectly still, letting the snowflakes pile on their shoulders. The youngling turned colors that no one had ever seen before, colors that meant pure, absolute joy. And the humans watched. The 37 humans who had built this winter stood at the edges of the cargo bay, watching the alien children discover snow. Some of them were crying. Others were laughing. Most were doing both. It was who threw the first snowball. He probably did not mean to start anything. He just saw a particularly perfect pile of snow near his feet and could not resist scooping it up. He shaped it into a ball almost automatically, the way he had done 10,000 times as a child. And then, without thinking, he threw it at. It hit her square in the shoulder. She stared at him in shock. Then she looked down at the snow at her feet. Then she looked back at him with a grin that promised revenge. "Snowball fight," someone shouted. Within seconds, the cargo bay descended into chaos. Humans and aliens alike began throwing snow at each other. Children screamed with laughter as they ducked behind trees and built small walls for protection. Parents who had come to observe found themselves drafted into the battle. Scooped up his first handful of snow. It was cold and wet and wonderful in his hands. He shaped it into a ball the way he had seen in the recordings. Then he looked around for a target. Commander Lee stood nearby, watching the battle with an amused expression. He was not participating, maintaining his dignity as station commander. Threw the snowball directly at his face. It hit Lee on the cheek with a soft splat. Snow scattered across his uniform. The cargo bay went silent as everyone turned to see what would happen. Lee stood very still for a long moment. He reached up and wiped the snow from his face. He looked at who was already preparing another snowball. That, Lee said solemnly, was a declaration of war. He scooped up snow with both hands and charged at the small cub, who shrieked with delight and ran for cover. The snowball fight resumed with even greater intensity. For 2 hours the battle raged. Alliances were formed and broken. Treaties were negotiated over cups of hot chocolate, then immediately violated. Set up a station serving warm drinks to anyone who needed to rest, but most of the children refused to stop. They were covered in snow, shivering with cold and absolutely radiantly happy. Finally, exhausted and wet and grinning, everyone gathered in the center of the cargo bay. The snow was falling more gently now, drifting down in soft spirals. The cold had seeped into everyone's bones, but no one wanted to leave. Stood among the human adults and alien children, looking around at all of them. His fur had settled into a soft, warm gold, a color that only displayed in moments of deep contentment. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Thank you all for this." Ruffled the snow from his fur. "Thank you," she replied, "for reminding us why we love winter." Commander Lee raised his cup of hot chocolate. "To first snow," he announced. 37 voices, human and alien alike, raised their cups in response. "To first snow." And above them, soft and white and magical, the snow continued to fall. The snow day incident, as it came to be known, did not stay quiet for long. Within hours, recordings of alien children experiencing their first snowfall spread across the station's internal networks. Within days, those recordings had been transmitted to a dozen different. Within weeks, the story had become one of the most shared pieces of media in the Galactic Coalition. The reactions were mixed, but mostly positive. Ambassador received messages from the asking detailed questions about snow. What was it made of? How did humans create it? Could they create their own? The scientists were particularly interested. They had long known that their planet's lack of seasonal variation was unusual, but they had never considered it a problem. Now, watching their children in the recordings, seeing the joy on their faces, they began to wonder what else their younglings might be missing. The delegation their formal complaint about resource allocation. In fact, their ambassador sent a private message to Commander Lee asking if future snow days could be arranged for children as well. "It appears," the message read, "that there is educational value in frozen water after all." Even the usually critical sent a representative to study the atmospheric systems that and had built. They did not admit it openly, but several children had asked their parents when they could go back to the snow room. Became famous, though he did not fully understand why. People recognized him in the station corridors. They called him the cub who demanded snow. Other children asked him questions about winter, about waiting, about what it felt like when that first snowflake landed on his nose. He answered every question patiently, but he always looked a little uncomfortable with the attention. "I did not do anything special," he told one afternoon several weeks after Snow Day. "I just asked for something. You humans are the ones who built it." "You asked for the impossible," replied. "That is special. Most people never ask for the impossible. They assume it cannot be done, so they do not even try." Thought about this for a long moment. Human, do all humans ask for impossible things? "Not all, but many, enough to make a difference," smiled. "It is how we went from caves to stars, one impossible thing at a time." 3 months after Snow Day, Ambassador received an official communication from the High Council. She read it 3 times before believing what it said. The Council had authorized a planetary project. For the first time in history, scientists would attempt to introduce seasonal variation to a small region of there. It would take generations to complete. The atmospheric modifications required were beyond anything they had ever attempted, but the Council had decided that children deserved to know what waiting for winter felt like. The project was named in his honor. Found her son in the botanical lab, helping care for her plants. He had become fascinated with growing things, with the slow process of seeds becoming flowers. It was another form of waiting, he told her, another way to experience the joy of anticipation. The High Council has made a decision, said, sitting down beside him. Looked up from the seedling he was watering. What decision? Told him about the project. She explained that because of what he had experienced, because of the story he had shared, an entire planet would be changed. Future generations of cubs would know winter. They would count the days on calendars. They would hope for snow. They would experience the joy of seasons. His fur shimmered through several colors before settling on a deep, thoughtful blue. Because I asked for snow. Because you asked for the impossible, said, echoing's words, and because humans helped you achieve it. That evening went to Commander Lee's office. The commander was working late, reviewing reports and signing documents. He looked tired but content, the look of a man who enjoyed his work. May I come in? Asked from the doorway. Lee looked up and smiled. Of course, what can I do for you? Walked to the commander's desk and placed something on it. It was his calendar, the one had given him, with 14 boxes marked with careful X's. I want you to have this, said, to remember. Lee picked up the calendar and studied it. Each X had been drawn with obvious care. The paper was worn from handling. In the corner, in childish handwriting, were the words, days until snow. This is very important to you, Lee said softly. Are you sure you want to give it away? I do not need it any more, replied. I have experienced waiting. I have experienced hopping. I have experienced winter. Now I want you to remember what you gave me, what all of you gave me. Lee was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to his wall, and hung the calendar in a place of honor, right where he could see it from his desk. I will remember, he promised, every day. Cargo Bay 7 was never converted back to storage. Instead, it became the Seasonal Experience Chamber, a permanent installation where any child on the station could experience Earth weather. Upgraded the systems to create not just winter but all 4 seasons. Spring rains, summer sunshine, autumn leaves, and of course, snow. Children from every species on the station visited regularly. They came to play in the snow, to feel rain on their faces, to watch leaves change color. Each visit was different. Each visit was magical. But once a year, on the anniversary of the first snow day, something special happened. Every human on the station gathered in the chamber with every alien child who wanted to join. They built snowmen and threw snowballs and drank hot chocolate. They told stories about Earth winters, about their childhoods, about the moments when snow made everything feel possible. And in the center of it all, surrounded by humans and aliens who had become his friends, his fur would shimmer with colors that words could not describe. His golden eyes would shine with joy that never faded no matter how many years passed. Watching from the edge of the chamber during one such anniversary, turned to with a thoughtful expression. We did not conquer the galaxy with weapons, she observed. We conquered it with hot chocolate and snowball fights. Shook her head gently. We did not conquer anything, we shared something. What did we share? Wonder, said simply. We shared wonder. In the chamber was teaching a new group of alien children how to catch snowflakes on their tongues. He spoke with the authority of an expert, though he was barely 7 years old by human counting. The white things are called snowflakes, he explained, his voice carrying across the falling snow. Each one is different. The humans say that is what makes them special. No 2 snowflakes are ever exactly the same in all the universe. A small hatchling raised her hand. What happens when they land on you? Smiled, an expression he had learned from humans. When they land on your nose, he said, that is when you understand. That is when you know why humans love their strange, spinning, seasonal world. The hatchling tilted her head back. A snowflake drifted down and landed on her snout. Her scales flushed with surprise, then with delight. It is cold, she exclaimed. Yes, agreed, cold and wonderful. Above them, soft and white and magical, the snow continued to fall. It fell on humans and. It fell on children who had known snow all their lives and children who were experiencing it for the first time. It fell on a space station floating in the void between stars, where the impossible had become possible because a small cub had dared to ask. And somewhere in the office of Commander Lee, a calendar hung on the wall with 14 careful X's, a reminder of the day humanity had given the galaxy its first taste of winter, its first taste of wonder, its first taste of snow.